Welcome to the Let's Have a Chat podcast. I'm Shalane, a best-selling new release author as well as a life and recovery coach. I was inspired to host this podcast to continue to share my story, but to ultimately connect with others on a more soulful level, as communication is key to understanding ourselves and those around us. We're going to chat about substance use, parenting, business, setbacks, but ultimately breakthroughs. So let's dive in. Take what you need and leave the rest. Thanks for being here. Now let's have a chat.
And welcome everyone to today's episode of Let's Have a Chat. And I have Corey here with me today, and Corey is going to say her last name because I've tried 1,000 times. I keep butchering it. So Corey, what is your last name?
Meldon.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Now, Corey, you're the founder of Empowered Neurodivergent Mom, and I think this is an important topic that we need to discuss. Reason being, neurodivergent, the term has been around for forever. For me, I'm only noticing it the past couple of years. Now, maybe that's because I don't have anyone in my family or children that are neurodivergent, so I'm not too familiar with the term, which I'm going to assume many can maybe relate with how I'm feeling or not be aware of what actually or what neurodivergent actually means. Can you give us a description or what it means to you, or like the scientific,
Sure.
What is it?
Sure.
Fill us in.
So as you mentioned, it's really been coming, I think, into more light and more usage within the past couple of years to describe what they call the neurodivergent experience. And to me, and from everything that I've seen, it encompasses things like ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dysgraphia, sensory processing disorder. I'm sure I'm missing one, but those are the main, for lack of a better, under the neurodivergent umbrella. And then there's differentiations between neurodivergent and neurodiverse.
That is like,
Yeah,
that's little.
It's very nuanced.
Yeah.
Right. But for different occasions, you would say, like addressing a person, individual, they are neurodivergent.
Okay.
But neurodiverse refers to, I guess, the more collective. I think. I'm not really sure how to explain that one because I still don't understand it myself.
Sure, that's why we're having these conversations. Let's hash it out.
Right. So I alternate, though, between saying that I'm neurodivergent. Sometimes I just lead with the ADHD because that's what people understand better. Or I say I'm ODHD, which is autistic and ADHD, because that also describes my experience. And I think at the end of the day, it really just comes down to personal preference. You want to say that you're neurodivergent and just leave it at that? Do you want to say, get into specifics? And for those of us who do get the chance, though, to explain, I think it helps us just really claim it, for ourselves. So that's how that's how I use neurodivergent and how I've embraced it. And then I think and this is silly almost, but the other reason I like the term, my favorite branch of psychology is neuropsychology, and I'm obsessed with neuroscience. So anything neuro related, and like I got obsessed with NLP or neuro linguistic programming. So anything like brain related and with that neuro kind of beginning on it. It piques my interest, and it's something I'm drawn to. So
I love that. How did this term become a part of your life?
Well, this was more a part of my life after I got my official diagnosis, which I had gone on this like self-diagnosis process from. I've always identified as a highly sensitive person, as an empath. On the Myers-Briggs, I'm an INFJ, so I have that kind of sensitivity. But then as I was getting older, it seemed like there was more going on. So I started on the self-assessment, self-quiz binge, and that eventually led me to self-diagnosing with inattentive ADHD. And as I was looking into the different ways of managing and how others were helping themselves, it occurred to me that, maybe medication might be something I want to explore. And I knew, though, that in order to get medication, I would have to have an official diagnosis. I couldn't just say to my doctor, it's like, oh, I think I have ADHD. Can you prescribe something for me?
Of course. Can I pause you there for a sec?
Sure.
Excuse me. My family's getting over the plague. We talked about this previously, so
You're all good.
I'm sorry. Now, talking about medication, did you feel as you were doing like this self-diagnosis, self-discovery, that there was a lack or that there was something wrong with you or that you were missing out on something? Why were you seeking this?
It was, well, this is also a twofold, so I have to get into both parts of it. I have a 23-year-old non-speaking autistic daughter, and I'm her full-time caregiver. But as she was getting older and transitioning out of a very supported school system, I had to look into more ways to support her at home, and looking at how her brain was changing, how her needs were changing, and how things were evolving. With executive function and emotional dysregulation, there are a lot of things looking at that. It's like, these sound like very familiar things that I struggle with, but on a different level. And then the other part of it was observing my youngest daughter and all of the struggles that she goes through. And as some of our conversations that we've had, her childhood is almost a mirror of my childhood. It's like, this is interesting.
I've seen this before.
Right. This looks like a very, very familiar story here.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't so much that I thought that I was lacking. It was previous experience, I think, too. I was diagnosed with clinical depression, now major depressive disorder, when I was 14. And at that point,
that's really early to be
that's
diagnosed with that.
My grief therapist said the same thing. She's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I was questioning that too. And it turns out, a lot of girls, women with ADHD, those born female, we are misdiagnosed as having anxiety or having, something else that's really ADHD. Could also be the other things, because
for sure,
I had joked with my other therapist, was like, I got my ADHD, I got my autism, I had the depression, but nobody's diagnosed me with anxiety yet. And she's like, oh, I have. It's like, oh, okay. But whatever.
Hey.
So when I was the depression, that's when I got my two ways of treating that at that time were talk therapy. And
this is when you were 14.
This is when I was 14. Yeah. It was talk therapy and medication. I was put on Prozac, which was the drug of the time to help people with depression. And I remember two major things about this. One, I hated talk therapy because I came out of my sessions feeling so much worse than I did going in.
Were you in those sessions really just like reflecting on the past and like the childhood?
Yeah. Yep. So there was no way, and now that I look back at it, there was no way for me to process in that moment, and I wasn't given the tools that I needed outside of my therapy sessions.
Can we just point out,
their own,
like being a 14-year-old teenage girl sucks by itself,
right? Right.
Like, oh my goodness.
And the Prozac, it was just, I can't. It was just crap. I'm not a fan. I stopped taking my medication, actually, by choice. And then when I was 19, 20, this was after I had my older daughter. Oh, yeah, I was at 16, I had my son. That was the other reason I stopped the Prozac.
Right.
But yeah, after I had my older daughter, I was put on, so I went back to a therapist and I was put on Lexapro, or was it Celexa? Celexa. That's the one I got put on then. And that was also a terrible experience, because it was like, yeah, okay, I don't feel sad per se, but I don't feel anything. I feel apathetic, and I can't be a parent like that. Like, if my kid's having a meltdown, I can't just sit there and be like, okay, whatever, it's happening. No, I have to be proactive. So I voluntarily took myself off of that.
Think, like, I'm no doctor or anything, but I think that is like some powerful intuition right there.
Right.
When you made that connection, like, I'm a mom, and a young mom at that, right? A young
Right.
mom trying to deal with
Right.
your own life and just that mother's intuition of needing to put my child first. And I can't be doing that if I'm doing this.
Right. So it also meant, learning more the hard way, more coping skills for myself. And really, I think at that point, internalizing even more my own struggles and issues, which hindsight 2020, probably not the best thing to do. But at that time, I was doing what I needed to do with the knowledge I had in order to do the things I still needed to do. And as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, I was in grief therapy. This was after my father passed away. And at that time, my therapist was looking into medication to help with the depression, because it was coming back.
So at this point, as your therapist was looking into medication, you were not on the Prozac or Celexa. You were like med free.
I was completely med free by choice.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I was looking into. I've always been the type of person that I acknowledge where medication has its time and place. However, if I can manage these things without medication, I think I'm all the better for it, because it means that my brain knows how to handle things, my body knows how to handle. So when she talked about that, she was like, well, let's try Lexapro. And I had said yes at first, just on a small dose. But then I started getting more of that Celexa experience. It was like, okay, I don't feel sad, but I don't feel anything. And growing up as a very empathic person, for me to not feel anything is not a good feeling. It's not a great.
How long did it take you from beginning the prescription to realizing, like, holy shit, it's happening again?
About a week.
That's it.
About a week. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was pretty quick. And, it wasn't like any major thing. It was just like subtle things, but it was noticeable enough, I think, because I hadn't been on medication for so long. And when I finally looked into exactly what Lexapro was, it's an SSRI, I believe. And that's the same that Prozac and Celexa are. And it's like, well, no wonder I'm having the same experience here. So I told my therapist, is like, this is not beneficial for me. Can I please stop taking this? Can we explore other methods to help me process my grief that don't involve me taking medication? So it was a conscious decision to just not be on meds, or at least not that type of medication. So when I got the ADHD diagnosis, it was looking at what kind of medication supported specific things with ADHD, especially the executive functioning pieces and all of that.
What were your experiences prior to being diagnosed? And how did being diagnosed with ADHD change anything, if anything? And did it give you a sense of, okay, I have this diagnosis now, and that's why this happened, and now I can start doing this, rather than, I don't know if you felt this, but thinking that something was wrong with me?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. For years, I always thought there was something just inherently wrong, that there was something I had to fix, that my brain just wasn't working the way it should, or that I wasn't working the way I should. I know.
How did ADHD come up for you in your life?
For me? Oh, well, it was just that the diagnosis thing. I was looking into, I've called it the HSP to highly sensitive person to sensory processing disorder to ADHD rabbit hole. That's pretty much how it went. And yeah, when I was reading more about ADHD, and especially inattentive, which used to be ADD, it was just everything that I was reading about, especially for women. It was just this whole nod of head. It's like, okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. And then, when I finally got that diagnostic piece, for me, it was, I know people say light bulb moments. This wasn't a light bulb
brainwell moment.
This was a universe illuminating moment. I was like, holy shit. This explains so much about my childhood, about how I function or don't function. And I say this too. It's like I had walked into my diagnosis, which was virtual at the time because of COVID. And the woman who diagnosed me, she said, definitely for ADHD, inattentive, but you also show up with a lot of autism. And I looked at her as like, what? I do?
Okay.
Yes. And she went over the things that where she thought I lined up with it and was like, okay.
Can
Cool.
you speak on that a little bit? Because me personally, when I think of autism, you don't come across as a woman with autism, right?
When you think
And
autism, you might think more my older daughter. Actually, she's she does a lot of flapping. She is non-speaking or nonverbal, as they used to say. And
exactly. And like
it's gonna be pretty- yeah.
I was a nanny to an adorable, sweet little boy, and he was diagnosed at about 2.
Okay.
And then, like, as he's progressed, like, still he's got his headphones on
Yep.
all the time. He
Yep.
still dances to the
Yep.
Wiggles, and like he's in his 20s
Oh,
now, right?
My
So
daughter loves the Wiggles, and she just turned. Well, she's going to be 24 my next birthday. She loves the
exactly,
Wiggles. So
exactly.
yeah,
So like, I don't know a lot of autistic people. I don't have any in my life, right? So I only see what I see. You only know what you know,
right. Yeah.
and it's at that extreme of nonverbal, like your daughter, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
inability to live independently, that sort of thing. So when you were saying that your therapist is saying that you had signs or have signs of autism, I'm kind of wowed by it. So what was showing up for her or for you that led her to this discovery, I guess?
For her and for me, really, it was then kind of looking into the differences of what makes me ADHD and what defines the autistic part. And where I've really seen it for people who are autistic, there's social struggles, and there's communication struggles. And for me in particular, there was just this the literalism. So it's taking things very concrete, and it's shown up in some very peculiar ways, I guess.
I need to stop you. You said literalism and taking things concrete. Do you mean like personally and internalizing things?
That's RSD, which is ADHD. That's projection sensitive dysphoria.
Okay.
No, I mean like, okay, so my example for this is with why I can't use traditional planners because they're scheduled by hour. So when I would schedule things into my planner and then I couldn't meet that deadline, I got so upset and thought I was a failure because I had to complete it by that deadline. Or if I'm in a conversation.
So what's the solution to that? Because I could see that, like,
I don't use a planner.
Okay, simple solution. Look at that.
Or just adapt it to my own needs. So I've learned over time, because then, like I said, I would just get into this guilt trap of, well, I didn't finish it now and my whole day is ruined. So that was one of those little, almost peculiar kind of quirky ways that it showed up for me. And then also for the autism piece, it's very socially challenging social situations. It takes me a while to adapt. There are times that I will just stand there and not say anything, mostly because I'm processing and people just think I have nothing to say. It's hard.
Or you're rude or something, or you're such a bitch.
Right. And the eye contact, that's another thing. Sometimes maintaining eye contact with people, it hurts. I can't explain why or how. It hurts. So
like physically, like
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Wait, like in your eyes?
No kidding. So instead of doing direct eye contact, I'll focus on this part on someone's head because then it looks like I'm making eye contact with you.
And you're not really going cross-eyed just yet. You're not. Right. Yeah.
I've done some of the stimming, as it's called, which is you're trying to regulate your nervous system by doing self-stimulating activities. That's hand flapping for most people. For me, it looks like that. I rub my fingertips together because I need the sensation. I can't see it right now, but I'm sitting on my foot because I need that input. I need sensory input. And I have an octopus fidget spinner here to regulate some of my nervous energy. This is another one of my stimming things. It's playing with my hair. And my daughter...
That kind of reminds me of is I used to suffer and greatly from anxiety, which I
Okay.
had attributed to my alcohol use. And as I was living in my drinking career and trying to manage this anxiety at the same time, which is completely counterproductive, like trying to manage anxiety and still drinking, tapping was introduced to me.
EFT
So,
tapping,
sorry?
the emotional freedom.
Yeah, like just tapping,
Yep. Yep.
right? Like if you're anxious, you're
Yeah.
doing this or you're
Yeah.
doing this.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, I guess, maybe a little bit similar to your
Oh,
stimming.
absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So to just like calm the food down,
Right.
and
Yeah.
like just chill
No, they
out. Like
are.
you got
Yeah.
this. You're just going into the grocery store. That is it, right?
Right. No, it's very similar because you're regulating your nervous system in a way that you can still function. And yeah, no, that is
And
very
and for
similar.
me too, I always thought I don't get it as much anymore, but a lot of a disassociation
Okay.
from my body. It's like we were not connected, right? So
Right.
to like bring me back and like physically I am here, right?
Right.
And like just that rhythmic beat or that motion to kind of in line with my heartbeat, I guess. Heartbeat was still going, but brain was somewhere
Right.
else. Like we needed to
Right.
come back to center, right? So
Right.
um yeah, I can definitely relate to trying to find yourself again. Or
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
do you um do you believe or do you know of any research or, like I said, you only know what you know, and I don't know,
Mhm.
so I'm asking the questions of neurodivergency, or autism being hereditary?
That's an interesting question.
It
And
is.
it's very interesting. The only two that I've looked into are autism and ADHD. And there is some research out there to support both being genetic. Not always, but that could amplify the possibility of passing it on to the next generation. Um, I think one parent and I, who was also in the field of coaching, or was, now they're developing sensory toys and other stuff, which is pretty cool too. He had said that if one parent has ADHD, there's that 50-50 chance that they're going to have a child with ADHD. It's like, well, that explains a whole hell of a lot with my kid. Okay. And with both of them, actually, because my older autistic daughter, though she was never formally diagnosed with it, they were like, she shows signs of hyperactivity. It's like, yeah, I know. And what do you want me to do?
Yeah, exactly.
What am I supposed to do? It's actually, this is interesting too. But with her, they had suggested too medication. And it's like, absolutely not. I'm not putting her on medication. She doesn't need to be on medication. Give her, this is in her IEP. Make sure she had access to sensory tools. Make sure she has access to a sensory room and or ways that she can calm down. That's what it is.
Yeah.
No, you're not medicating her. I was
So
adamantly against it.
I can appreciate that because my oldest daughter, she's 13, she's gonna be 14 this year. And she's always been very creative. She's very, very, very social. She's very smart in the creative aspect. She's like her mother when it comes to math. Like we're not doing the 7 x 6 sort of thing, like off the top of your head, right? And I own that. I own that about me being terrible at math. But
Oh, math is my weakness too. Like
it's
whenever
awful.
my daughter, she's like, "Can you help me with this?" I'm like, "I'm really not the person to ask. You do realize,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah,
English, yes.
exactly.
Math,
Yeah.
not so much."
100%. And like, you need a project done. You need to write an essay. I got you, girl. But yeah,
Right. You want to plan out your science project? Let's go. But if it involves math,
exactly. So this is kind of going to tap into what we were talking about at the beginning of neurodivergent and these terms and diagnosis coming more mainstream or just more well known.
Yeah.
My daughter's come to me and she's like, "Oh, I think do I have autism or do I have ADHD?" And she's like, "I want to go on medication." And when you were saying about your daughter, absolutely not. She just needed the tools. I'm like, Paloma, you're fine. You are perfect the way you are. You are absolutely perfect. And that's I mean, I wouldn't deny my daughter medication if it would truly change her
Sure.
life. And if she needed that, I
Sure.
need to put that staple there. But it's kind of scary with all the information that's out there or misinformation that's out there. Let me rephrase that now my daughter, who has just been this creative wonder her whole life, an artistic anomaly in my eyes anyways, is wanting to be put on medication for something that she's learning about on TikTok.
From that perspective, what I can also, what I can recommend non-medication wise is very diluted coffee. Caffeine, this is my personal experience. Caffeine it's not a stimulant for me. It helps calm me down. I can't explain how or why, but it's just how my system works. And I would also look into L-theanine, which is the supplement, but it helps. It's another stimulant. I don't know exactly how it works, so I don't want to tell you anything.
We're not diagnosing. We're not prescribing here.
I'm just
we're just having a conversation, friend to friend.
Just suggesting what's helped for me and what I've looked into to help for me. And this also ties me back to my other why I wanted the diagnosis in case I needed the medication.
Yeah.
When I approached my doctor about that, I told her, I was like, I have my diagnosis. I think I do still need some support, but I can't be on an SSRI. What can I take? And I got prescribed Wellbutrin, which people have had up and down experiences with that too. So she told me, let's start with this and see how it goes. And it was prescribed for me to help with my anxiety and my depression on script. Off-brand, it's used for people with ADHD because it is a dopamine inhibitor. So the dopamine stays in your system longer. And for so many of us who do have ADHD, dopamine being in our system or not being in our system is a huge, huge thing. And I've noticed a big difference being on it. So for me, that helped. Plus, it's helping me with the anxiety. It helped me with the depression pieces. It's like, all right, cool. And it's not an SSRI. Bonus, I can still feel all the freaking things, which sometimes
feel
suck.
all the feels. And it's important to,
I
like
need
you
to
just
feel
said
the feels.
Of
I need
course.
to feel them.
Yeah, you need to feel them and you need to process them and you need to release them. Because if you don't go through that ugly, nasty, sticky process, where does it go? It just stays inside.
Exactly.
And it manifests in like so many ways. Headaches, back pain, hips, or constipation. Like,
yeah. And like I had said to both to my doctor and to my therapist at the time, it's like, I would rather feel all of the things that I feel and have to go through the nasty, ugly frying on the floor and whatever else comes with it than have to internalize and hold or not be able to feel anything.
That's so true.
Because it sucks.
You know what? That brings me to what, like, hindsight's 2020. We talk about this all the time. As I think about my drinking career over the 20 years and why I did it and how it was related to my childhood and this and that. Yes, I had my first drink when I was 12, blah, blah, blah. But I had to grow up quicker than I was supposed to. My mother, single mother, diagnosed with MS and never got to wheelchair, but very limited in mobility. So once I was able to drive, I'd park her at the front door or really close to the buggies sort of thing. I was always carrying the groceries from as long as I could remember. So, and other things. And I was always parenting the parent. And as I think back to the end of when I was drinking to feel something. And it's like kind of backwards. Many people drink to numb.
Not feel. Yeah.
Yeah, to not feel. And when I would drink, I was so freaking emotional because I never had any emotions my whole life because I was this fucking hard ass with my mother and my relationships as a mother myself. I'm just very structured, like no flexibility and just things like really had to be my way. So it was to feel something.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind just looking back.
There's a need, from what I'm gathering, just like the underlying need of control.
100%.
which is also highly related to anxiety because so
Mhm.
much else is like unpredictable. But if you have control over this one thing, it's like, I am in charge of this. And you're not taking that
Absolutely.
away from me. I
And
can
it,
relate to that too.
and I think that's why, well,
Yeah.
part and parcel of why I'm an entrepreneur. Like, there's
Oh,
no way
absolutely.
in hell that it's a good fit for many, not for me, but to go and work in an establishment, have a 9 to 5, and have a boss,
Yeah.
like I'd be probably fired on the first day. Just saying.
The thought of being in a 9 to 5 traditional job just kind of gives me creeps because I can't, as much as I love having some structure and routine, and I need structure and routine, I can't have that same monotony day after day after day. No, no, thank you. I will go crazy and I will take everybody in the office with me.
Absolutely. And just to put a note on that, for those of you who do work a 9 to 5 and
Right.
who do
If that
provide a
works for you,
service,
that, you know what,
absolutely. And
do
I'm
what
so
works for
grateful for those who
you.
still
Yes.
scan my groceries for me. Like I went up to, I was at, where was I? I was at the 7-Eleven the other day, and the self scanner was right by the door, and there was a sales associate behind the counter. And I'm walking up, and he's there. He's not serving anyone. The scanner was there, and I was like, "Hey, like a person, can you scan my thing?" Like, wait, like so. On occasion, like I like the interaction.
Human,
That's why
right, right,
exactly. That's why I started the podcast to talk to
right.
people. It's so important to like get this shit out. Um, okay, speaking of getting shit out, I have a heavy question.
Yes.
And I can totally appreciate if you don't want to share this. But it is a hot topic all around the world in the mommy groups. I've definitely come across it. I'm going to ask a question. What are your thoughts, or with your research or whatever, where you are now, of autism relating to vaccines?
Well, I have a multi view on it,
Sure.
and because I do believe in vaccine injury, but the direct correlation and link for autism and vaccines, not so much, at least as far as the MMR vaccine, because of the research that was put behind it, which was funded by Dr. Andrew Wakefield, I believe. And there's so much conflicting information, but the majority of that I've seen in the, as they're called, actually autistic communities, is that his research was falsified. And I haven't done enough of my own research into the research.
For sure.
I think it was just one of those things that I just didn't want to get involved in.
And this is a loaded question. I mean,
Oh yeah,
when
absolutely. Yeah,
and
no,
it's been going on
it's a
for years.
big divide, both within, the autism, the parenting community, parents of autistic kids, and the actually autistic. There's a big war between those two communities. And this has nothing to do with the autism vaccine question, but it's the moms of autistic kids who use the term autism mom because it pisses off people, from what I've seen, who are actually autistic because they aren't autistic. They are the mom, and they're taking their identity away from their child. So it's person versus.
So moms are calling themselves autistic mom, but they're not
saying
autistic.
autism. No. They're calling themselves autism mom.
Okay.
And the problem with that, then from what I understand, it's person first versus identity first. Like you say, autistic person versus person with autism.
Okay.
Right. And at the end of the day, it's like, am I going to get pissed off because somebody's calling themselves this when they aren't that? It's like, no, because that's also where my literalist thing kind of comes in. It's like, if somebody calls themselves a soccer mom, I'm not going to assume that you are a mom made of soccer balls. Well, I get that.
I definitely call myself hockey mom. My oldest son's an elite hockey player, and I literally have a shirt. It says hockey mom.
Right,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Or, I call myself crazy cat person. Am I crazy? Debatable. Cat person?
Depends on who you
Absolutely.
ask. Depends on the day of the week.
It depends on the time, the day.
Yeah.
Cat person? Yes. Does that mean I'm a cat? No, absolutely not. So yeah, no, but back to the vaccine autism thing. I think at the end of the day, and this is really just how I relate to a lot of the hot button issues, do your own research. And if that is convincing enough for you, more power to you.
Yeah, because like
You
we
know,
said
'cause
earlier, we only know what we know, right?
exactly.
And
And
it's
I'm
tough
not,
because you want to trust. You want to trust these
uh-huh,
people who are
uh-huh,
in power, but also need to recognize that they are running a business. And then there's the
exactly.
discussion of, oh, polio was wiped out because of all these vaccines and blah, blah, blah. So vaccines work. And then, like, when I look at my vaccine, I still have my, like, original, like, vaccine cards from when I was
Uh-huh.
growing up in elementary school. And there was, like, what? I got maybe 8 vaccines or so. I don't even know the number, but it was, like, minuscule. It was
Yeah,
tiny.
yeah, we
And
had
now the
like
vaccine schedule, by the time you're 18 or whatever it
it's
is,
ridiculous,
it's astronomical.
crazy.
So it's
Yeah,
like we want to trust, but then recognize that they're running a business and there's no money in health. There just
exactly.
isn't,
Right.
right? So
Mhm.
I don't know. It's really tough.
Yeah,
It's really tough.
I think at the end of the day, for parents, anyone really, do the research and then make the decisions based on that research. You know,
And when doing the research, to me, that's not just are vaccines safe on Google, right? Like
right.
talk to your doctor, talk to a pediatrician, talk to many doctors, because just like you
Uh-huh.
can go to your doctor, one may diagnose you for autism, one may not, right?
Right,
They like,
exactly.
because I think there's a lot of opinions
Mhm.
around the medical
Sure.
industry, right? There has to be some humanizing factor behind the people who are making these decisions.
Yeah. Yes. I absolutely seek multiple sources and for the love of
Google,
all,
one Google search, are vaccines
yes.
safe? That's
And
not
for the
doing your
love of
research.
everything, don't just rely on what you hear in the mom Facebook group.
Because, like, I'm a mom. I don't get involved in those discussions. I
Oh,
can't.
I stay away from them
Well, I
with a
can't.
10-foot pole. I'm like, nope, nope.
But, like, the moms in those groups, we're fucking mama bears, and we're
Oh,
going to
yeah.
do and say whatever we can
Oh,
to
yeah.
make our point proven and to, quote unquote, protect our children
Sure.
and share that information that's worked for us with the masses, right? But
Right.
opinions are like
Right.
assholes. Everyone's got one. So,
Exactly. And, you know, like I was saying too, at the end of the day, it really is up to the individual, up to the parent. Make the decision, make an informed and educated decision before you just go blindly charging into a decision, especially with, you know, really sensitive and important issues like that.
I hear that. Excuse me. Support. Okay, so looking back and having a neurodivergent daughter, what supports do you feel were lacking at that time compared to where you are now? Are there more available supports? Has there been a shift kind of in the industry of like, look, this is happening in our lives and we can't as parents do it on our own. We need help. We need community. We need blah, blah, blah.
Well, the biggest difference between then and now, because my daughter was diagnosed for her second birthday or third birthday. She was diagnosed pretty young, as most children tend to be, at least with her severity. And at that time, this was before we had things like Facebook. We had things like Twitter. This was the early days of like Yahoo groups.
Yahoo groups. I don't know.
Yahoo groups.
No.
Yeah. This was the days of Yahoo.
I just go back to MSN Messenger.
That too. There was
Yeah.
that. And people were still using things like ICQ.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
ICQ.
was so fun.
And it was like
Little annoying.
ICQ, but it was really like ICQ.
Right. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay.
Creepy.
And then going to a library, and yeah, so it was really different then. And one of the challenges that's carried over even from then to now, which is pretty sad, is still the disparity in research and support for females, either autistic females or females with ADHD, just because the research is still lagging. Versus the amount of research that's gone into studying this in boys. And it's frustrating. So
more funding has gone into
the way I've
boys,
seen
men.
it, yes,
Okay.
I think there is. And then because of that, more support and more resources have been made available. And at that time, it was a big struggle. It still can be a big struggle because then you're just kind of lost in this sea of, okay, well, this is what this person says, but they're not speaking about my daughter. They're speaking about a boy. They're speaking about, a more high functioning, for lack of a better term,
Right.
boy. My daughter is a not, severely autistic girl who can't speak. What am I doing? So it was a lot of self-sufficiency. It was a lot of creating my own supports, a lot of DIY, a lot of trial and error, so much trial and error, and then connecting where I could with parents, either fellow parents of kids at her school or within local networks. And like I said, there's been advancements. Obviously, now we have Facebook groups, which do provide some community, and there's been advancements and supports available for parents, which is awesome. However, I think there's still always going to be some lack and some disconnect as far as where many parents, and this has been the case with, parents that I've worked with in the past, the biggest thing that they talked to me about was my child seems to be doing so well and so successfully at school, but then when they come home, they are a complete mess. And my biggest, takeaway with that is, well, at school, your child has a very detailed structure, a very detailed routine. And your school also has things that you probably don't have at home, not through any fault of your own, but they have access to advanced therapy equipment, to advanced sensory tools, to all of these things. So the best thing that you can start with is, one, creating some kind of routine and structure. It doesn't have to be super rigid, but at least providing that predictability.
So that's important for a child with, or
for
a young adult
kids,
with autism.
Yeah, for autistic kids, I believe for people with ADHD too. And then number two, look into support, like sensory support things. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate, like fidget tools, having those available, or we have a calming corner. Both my daughter and I use it. My younger daughter and I use it equally. It's just having simple things that give your child the sensory support that they're seeking. And for parents themselves, I think especially for moms, schedule time for yourself, make it intentional, and do not neglect it. Because if you can't and you aren't taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to do jack shit for anybody else.
Absolutely. And that doesn't mean just taking a shit in the bathroom and locking the door.
Yeah, right.
Like you take your journal, you go for a walk, you sit on a bench, you get someone to mind your children if you need. Like you have to set that intention.
Now they've been popping up in closer to us. They're called rage rooms. I was like, I want to go to one so bad.
Yeah.
Just break shit, like get out my anger. The easiest way I do that is I go bowling, because then I just put little faces on the pins. Like, I need to get out my aggression.
Yeah. That's a great idea. Like, why not, right?
It helps my younger daughter too, because she gets out her aggression that way. It was like, it's a lot. And she said to me, this is a lot better than punching someone. It is. It's a lot better.
And then if you guys are going together, like, those are moments and times and experiences that you guys are going to remember for forever, right? Like, oh my God, remember when we were throwing the bowling balls and that his face was on there, or her face was on there? What's next for Corey?
Well, I am growing my business as Empowered Neuro Mom, and that means running my podcast, Neurodivergent Mom Life, which is now coming into season 2. It's actually the third iteration I've had of this podcast. It started way back 3-4 years ago as Autism Family Life. And then because of my pure lack of consistency, it lapsed. It came back as Authentically Autistic and ADHD. This was after I got my own diagnosis. And the content shifted more to adults rather than parents. But then it felt like something was missing because I'm still a mom, So after walking away from that business for numerous reasons not related to business, I came back with this brand of Empowered Neuro Mom, and the podcast in particular is Neurodivergent Mom Life, because that's who I am. I am a neurodivergent mom, and I'm raising neurodiverse kids or neurodivergent kids in a neurotypical world, and we have a neurodiverse families. So it's a mix of neurodivergent and neurotypical.
I love how this keeps getting called to you. Like, this is your work.
Yeah,
Like,
this is where I need
come
to
on,
be.
Corey, like, get your shit together. Like, the world needs you.
Well, it's so funny too, because when I was looking back on my older Instagram content, when I had my older account, I was talking about doing these coaching programs in 2020 and 2019. It's like, shit, if I could just, again, hindsight 2020, if I had just been more consistent with it, then I wouldn't be sitting here 5 years later trying to say, like, well, this is what I'm doing. It's like, no, this is what I've always been doing. And it just wasn't consistent enough with talking about it. And it got to the point. It's like, no.
Why am I not talking about this?
Why am I not doing
this?
this?
Is what I want to do. So I have to like let people know.
Right. This is like, and they talk about, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, which is true. And if I'm not doing something I'm passionate about, it's just going to go to the
job.
It's a job, and I don't want it.
Yeah.
Right. So my business to that end has evolved from just this like simple little mom blog to supporting families with autistic kids to I think I want to support adults who are autistic or have ADHD to I'm empowering fucking moms who are probably neurodivergent, but who are definitely raising neurodivergent daughters.
And you can be that power for just based on our conversation for those who, like at the time when you were maybe feeling powerless, where they may be feeling right now, right?
Yeah.
So to find that support with anything in your life, really, if you reach out, find the mentors, find the gurus, find the books, the authors. That's how we grow and we change and we learn about ourselves and we learn about others and the community and just to get support that way.
Absolutely.
So what I think you're doing is absolutely phenomenal and your work is important and
thank you.
Completely worthy of such greatness and helping people to change their lives, manage their lives, be happy with their lives and accept their lives because you definitely bring that to the forefront that's what's working for you. That's what you do.
Yeah. And I think that's been one of the biggest struggles for me, not just as someone with ADHD, but also as a female, as a woman, as a mom, is that we get into these huge cycles of guilt, of shame, of am I doing enough? Am I worthy enough? My self-esteem used to be absolutely shitty for so many reasons. And it wasn't until learning more about the ADHD pieces, I had mentioned like rejection sensitive dysphoria, and I was a people pleaser, big time. Because I wanted people's approval. I wanted to be accepted. And I was this way my entire life up until, like my late 30s. And then finally I was like, I had that question. It's like, so who am I? Beyond being a mom, who the fuck am I?
Yeah. Who's Corey?
And I didn't know. I did not know who I was.
Like who versus do, what I do versus who I am. Like we're really tied to what I do.
Really down to the core of who I was. And it involved, to get a little bit woo, it involved like shadow work, as they call it, and inner child healing. I had to learn how to repair my inner child because my inner child was pretty fucked up, as it turns out.
Well, most are.
Yeah, most of us are. And, I say this too, it's like through no fault of my parents. My parents loved me. They did the best with what they knew. And my parents, they raised a pretty strong and resilient person who's never going to give up on anything. And, it's like, oh, you're so stubborn. I'm like, damn fucking right I am. I have to be.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've embraced that instead of looking at it like, oh, you're so stubborn. It's like, yeah, I'm resilient. Yeah. What are you going to do?
How are you that, that differentiation, stubborn,
exactly,
resilient.
I'm not going to give up. I can't. And so that's what I want to be able to do, is to just help that mom, to help that woman who was me 5 years ago, and just tell her and let her know, yeah, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. No, it's not an oncoming train.
I would love that.
It's not going to be easy to get there. And yeah, there are going to be some setbacks, but you will get there. And I'm here to help you.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I just thank you, Corey, so much for your insight, your wisdom, your experience, and
Thank you for having me. It's been
absolutely what
a
a
pleasure.
lovely conversation. Now, I'd like to end each episode or wrap up each episode with 2 to 3, 3 to 5, I don't care, pick a number, 1, whatever, of things that, or like a quote or a book or something that really resonates or that you think about that like you just kind of carry throughout your life. Like for me, other people's opinions of me are none of my fucking business, right? That's one that I kind of, that I like. Or every journey begins with a single step.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that one too.
Yeah.
Well, I have 3.
Tell me.
My one, in no particular order.
Of course.
One is the do what you can with what you have and what you know. You know, don't beat yourself up for not knowing at the time. You're doing the best that you can, which equates to you are enough.
Totally.
You are enough. Period.
It's simple. You are enough. You are here.
Right.
You are enough.
Right. And this also, I guess, ties in with it too, is that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It can be a sign of strength because you are acknowledging your own vulnerability.
I think that's really important for men as well.
Yes.
Not just for women,
Yes.
not just for like the super moms out there, but for men, because they hold so much, can hold so much pressure and responsibility, going away to work. Like my husband, he's away for work right now. And that's hard on him. Like he's human.
Yeah.
He has 4 children and just trying to be like the tough guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you don't have to be. Oh, who's telling you this? Who's telling you you have to be tough? It's not me. It's not me. So
Yeah. My second, and I don't know if you can see behind me, but I have a Stitch kind of thing on there.
yeah.
And on it is Ohana means family. Lilo and Stitch is my favorite Disney movie. Stitch is one of my favorite Disney characters ever. And that piece of it in particular, the Ohana is family, is one of my mantras, life, whatever, because my family is everything. And that extends to the not by blood family.
I was just going to say, like, family for people can, the blood family, that could be fucking tough. Like,
right. It's with my blood family and with my not by blood family. It's my family has been my support network. And so that for me is a huge anchoring thing. And then the third is from Star Wars. Do or do not.
My husband's favorite movie.
Yeah, it's do or do not. There is no try, which just so happens to come from Empire Strikes Back, which is my favorite Star Wars movie ever. Caveat: Darth Vader is my favorite. But
okay.
Darth Vader is my favorite on the dark side, and then Obi-Wan Kenobi is my favorite of the Jedi, of course. Anyway,
my husband has an extensive. He's an avid Star Wars UCS set, a Lego collector. And like when we built our house, we literally have a Lego room. Like we built a room just for his Legos. So yeah, that's his jam. And he's very excited. He's very like, he has high energy. And so that is kind of like that's his calming. That's his calming to kind of bring him,
awesome.
bring him around. Corey, thank you again so much for being here, and you're just doing such phenomenal and great work in the world. And I'm glad that you finally have learned the lesson that the world keeps showing at you. You got to do this. You got to do this. You got to do this.
Right.
And thank you to our listeners for showing up today. Please like, share, love, do whatever you can to get Corey's message out to the world today. I hope you have the best day ever, and we will chat soon. Bye now.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you found it enlightening, inspiring, and it puts a little pep in your step. Please be sure to like, comment, and share. Together, we can change the world. Until next time, I hope you have the best day ever.